It's another edition of Time About the Movies. We're taking a look at the weekend of August 10th, 1990. Once again, we got 4 movies to look at, so let's not waste any time. Let's just jump right on into it, and we'll start with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that was Joel Schumacher's psychological horror thriller, Flatliners, starring Julia Roberts, Kiefer Sutherland, and Kevin Bacon.
Today's a good day to die.
Flatline.
30 seconds to go.
Can you recall any specific emotion or sensation?
No, but there is something out there.
We're running out of time.
300, clear. Nothing. Your heart going dead, clear.
Nothing, I can't hear anything.
Come on, Nelson. Breathe. We lost him.
Welcome back, man.
I'm going next.
2 minutes.
2:10.
Was there anything negative about your experience?
This is too weird. We've experienced death.
Now, somehow we brought our sins back physically. They're pissed.
It is not hallucination, and it is not possible.
Oh, my God.
You withheld information. That's the same as lying.
You wouldn't have done it.
At least we would have had a choice. They're not real.
Hey, come on, they're your sins. Live with them. I do.
No! Nelson, please!
I thought I paid my dues.
Thank you for the nightmare.
No! Come on, Joe.
Started CPR. 1,000. 2,000.
Flatliners. Some lines shouldn't be crossed.
There is a very intriguing concept with Flatliners. You have these medical students. They have this thing where one of them goes flatlines, is dead for a certain period of time, and it usually just starts off for like 20 seconds, and then it grows to like 2 minutes, and then they want to try to make it go longer than that, like 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and it's an interesting concept. It's a good idea. The movie, unfortunately, has just the wrong execution for it. I mean, the movie overall, I think is good, but I feel like it could have been a whole lot better. You've got a pretty good cast here. Sutherland, Roberts, and Bacon, they work off each other very well, as they do with William Baldwin and Oliver Platt, who are also in this. But some of the visuals overall are pretty good. And like I said, the concept and the idea, very clever, very interesting. Unfortunately, it doesn't. The story kind of goes through the generic plot, the typical plot you would see in a formulaic type of movie like this. Like, something happens, one person becomes the bad guy, and it becomes like it just becomes predictable what's going to happen at the end. Like, something that it's going to be very, it's just not going to live up to the expectations that the premise and the cast here have worked for. This movie almost works as a great movie, but as it is, it's a good movie. It's a good movie that really could have been a whole lot better if the script writing had been a little bit better. That's what I want to say. The script writing here is not very good. Like, it's for a story structure, it kind of just takes the same formulaic route we see in movies like this. It starts off strong, peters off at the end pretty quickly, and then falters off badly. But not badly, falters off to a point where it's just like, it knocks it off a couple of stars from what I would have given it before. But like I said, it's not a bad movie. It definitely has its moments. It has a good cast, it has great visuals, it has a good idea to it. I just wish the script had been better written and better handled. That's really all I wanted for this. But I'll at least give it this. It's a lot better than the remake was in 2017, so if that's anything to say about it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Flatliners. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, which is Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. starring in the action comedy Air America.
American manpower. There are no American combat troops in Laos.
See, I put us here, but the map doesn't show a town here.
Well, then I guess we're not actually here. And we don't really run 400 flights a day out of here. Or ship 100 tons of cargo, medicines, weapons.
Why are they shooting at us?
Because they're unfriendly.
Why is everyone so unfriendly?
Well, they haven't got to know us yet.
I don't want to crash twice in one day.
Don't worry. I crash better than anyone I know.
Why don't you go?
No, I don't want to go first.
Okay, I'll go first.
No, I don't want to go second.
All right, toss the coin.
Tails.
Tails, isn't it?
That's tails.
No, I'll take it.
Mel Mel Gibson. Robert Downey Jr.
Anything, anywhere, anytime. That's our motto. Well, it would be.
If we actually existed.
That's right.
But we don't.
Air America.
Yeah, kind of like Flatliners, a movie that had potential, has a really good cast to work with, especially the two leads, Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr., but man, did they advertise this movie the wrong way. The trailer makes it look like this lighthearted buddy comedy, something in the lines of Lethal Weapon movies, but in the film, it's much, much different. There are serious themes of an anti-war message. The opium trade becomes a major focus here. There's a negative portrayal of the Laotian general, played by Burt Kerwick, who is General Lu Song. And the movie itself is just not that exciting. I mean, it doesn't really have that spark that something like a Lethal Weapon movie could have, especially with Mel Gibson, because Mel Gibson has proven he can work chemistry with some people that he works with. Like, he can work with Danny Glover in the Lethal Weapon movies. He already did it earlier in the summer with Goldie Hawn and Burn on a Wire. And you think with Robert Downey Jr. next to him, who was a young aspiring actor at the time, who was a very good actor back then, you would think that these two could work off each other well enough so the chemistry could make this movie surpass a pretty mediocre script. But unfortunately, it just really doesn't. I think that's the biggest problem with the movie, is that the script, it plays it too safe. It plays it way too safe. It actually kind of makes the CIA kind of look like jerks in this movie. And I mean, there's definitely elements here where they could have tried a little bit more to make it a much more enjoyable movie than it is, but it really doesn't work. It's a movie that had so much potential to it, but unfortunately, it just couldn't figure out how to stick the landing or make something that could have been something really good. But for what it is, it's just a movie that had so much potential, completely wasted it. It's a disappointment, to say the least, especially when you have Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. in this, who these two could have worked off each other so well, but sadly it doesn't. It was a major disappointment that when I finally got to see this movie, and it didn't live up to the expectations I thought it would have. But that's Air America for you. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, which my mind has gone blank right now, so you're going to see it right here.
The war was good for L.A. Brought in money, opportunity, and more than a little greed.
Put the weasel in jail. Nothing else matters. Nothing else in the world.
How about $5 or $6 million?
Could I make a phone call?
Please.
Now the war's over, and people come here because they think the money's easy and the women are easier. That's a combination that's good for business. The divorce business.
I was honestly unfaithful.
Which, by the way, pays for my convertible, my country club dues,
Hell of a shot.
and my office building, where I can shut the doors and not even hear the oil well pumping across the street. The war was good for women, too. Gave them jobs.
Oh, you're gonna make me do it, aren't you?
Money, and enough independence to double the divorce rate, which didn't hurt my business any either. After all these years, I've learned a couple of things.
Trick or treat.
The clients lie.
Say hello to Jake Gittes.
What's this?
It's a hand grenade. You ought to know that. You're a war hero.
The cops always think I'm lying.
I didn't know he didn't have the gun with him.
Oh, I'd never frisk him before I let him walk in on his wife hanging on the headboard while some guy was slamming her into the wall, Lou. The lady in question reminds you of someone else. And marriage has made more liars out of men than golf. Of course, that guy can't live without golf.
The deal is you'll turn the wire over to me at the end of this round, or I'll have you killed.
Sure, the society crowd turns up its nose at mousing around and peeking through keyholes, but they're the ones who pay the most to see what's on the other side.
Come on. You can tell me.
Blackmail.
What are you talking about?
You tell me what the hell you think's going on here, and I'll tell you if I think you're right.
These days, people want to have it all. New cars, power steering, houses in the suburbs, speedboats, and instant cameras.
Oh, no, Penny, how could you? What's going on here? How could you, Kitty? How could you with him? Not with him!
So now, It only takes a minute to see what a murder looks like.
Then what happens?
Usually happens when somebody pulls a gun. Everybody does. What I do for a living may not be very reputable, but I am. In this town, I'm the leper with the most fingers.
Yeah, that's not a promising sign if I can't remember The Two Jakes, the sequel to one of the great movies of the 1970s in Chinatown. And honestly, it pretty much tells you everything you need to know about this movie, because you would think with a sequel to Chinatown coming 16 years after the original movie, you would think that this would have some sort of merit to it, like something people would get excited for, you know. But unfortunately, this is one of those movies that had been in production hell for so many years. The script for this actually was finished in 1984, I should say. It actually dates back all the way to when Chinatown just came out 2 years afterwards in 1976. But then the script finally got finished in 84. Robert Towne was supposed to direct the film. If you see the Paramount 1985 trailer reel, it's heavily marketed in there as a movie that is eventually going to happen at some point, with Robert Towne directing it, and unfortunately that never happened. When they were working on it in 85, they had Kelly McGillis, Kathy Moriarty, Dennis Hopper, Joe Pesci, and Harvey Keitel all casted. They were set to go. All the sets were built. Filming was about to begin. And then Robert Towne backs out at the last moment. Like, he left the movie, and just because of... And it created a lot of creative differences between him, Robert Evans, and Jack Nicholson. And then, after that happened, they got Dino De Laurentiis to help finance the movie. Harrison Ford was almost set to take over the role of Jake Gittes. And then Roy Scheider was supposed to play the other Jake. And they were supposed to start shooting that in 86. They thought about bringing John Huston back to direct that movie, but that never happened, and the film just kept going through all of these circumstances. The Cannon Group actually bought the film a little bit, and then they went back to Paramount afterwards, and then finally in April of 89, they finally made the movie, and this was Jack Nicholson's directorial debut on this film. But unfortunately, it just doesn't live up to that much of the problems that they had at the beginning. You have to have a really good movie if you've had that many production difficulties. And unfortunately, the movie just doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have that same spark that the original Two Jakes had. The original Chinatown had. I'm getting so confused right now. Because the original Chinatown, it's a movie that still very much holds up almost 50 years later. This movie it just doesn't feel necessary. Like, there's nothing about this story that feels like it needed to continue. Chinatown had a good conclusion to its story. And so with this movie, it's just like, what's the real point of this? I mean, what am I really getting from this movie that it's so important that you had to make this movie? And sure enough, the movie didn't do so well. It crashed and burned at the box office. It only made back $10 million of its $25 million budget. And for a movie that was heavily hyped, long in production, waited over 15 years to get made, and you have Jack Nicholson not only starring but directing as well, and it also had it still has a pretty good cast: Harvey Keitel, Meg Tilly, Madeline Stowe, Eli Wallach, Reuben Blades, Frederick Forrest, David Keith, Richard Farnsworth, Tracy Walker, James Hong, Faye Dunaway, Tom Waits. For a movie with that big of a cast in here, and it for just to come out like this, that's a major, major misfire for Paramount Pictures, especially since their summer started off with them completely re-editing another 48 hours within a week before its release, creating one of the biggest clusterfucks you'll ever see. And then it ends with this. So yeah, needless to say, this movie is not very good. This is a very lackluster sequel to a movie that still holds up very well. And like I said before, you didn't really need this movie. There was really nothing there that we needed to know in a sequel film, and this movie really has no purpose of existing. The Two Jakes, like I said, it's just a movie that just doesn't need to exist. It's a movie that it's there. It's supposed to be something. It doesn't have that same. It doesn't have that same. What am I trying to say? Epic qualities that the first movie did, and there really is no reason for it to exist. So, yeah. So you can see why I forgot it in the beginning, and most people probably forgot it even existed until now. So, That's the two Jakes. Now let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is Twister. Not the 96 movie, but the comedy called Twister.
Prepare yourself to be blown away by the most twisted comedy in years.
How do you feel when you do something bad?
It's the whirlwind tale of a special American family.
Don't mean this to me. I'm rich.
With a tornado on the outside.
Killed 15 people so far.
And a madhouse on the inside.
It might be a madhouse, but it's my house.
Not since the Wizard of Oz has Kansas been this windy. Or this crazy.
You're right. We got a stupid family.
Rolling Stone magazine calls Twister fiendishly funny farce.
Thank you.
Part funhouse, part chamber of horrors.
Where's the laboratory?
Outrageous, original entertainment.
It's an acquired taste.
Join Harry Dean Stanton from Repo Man, Crispin Glover from Back to the Future, Susie Amos from Fandango, Dylan McDermott from Hamburger Hill, with special appearance by Tim Robbins from Bull Durham.
I came back to rescue Violet and Maureen from this loony bin.
Maybe you ought to come back tomorrow when we don't have company.
Okay.
Don't miss Twister.
You know how in the movie Soap Dish, all the drama and all the over-the-top stuff that happens in the movie takes place in the same realm of a potential soap opera that within the soap opera? Imagine that, except the soap opera is actually real, and it's not funny whatsoever. That's what this movie is. This movie feels like a melodramatic soap opera disguising itself as a comedy and really failing miserably on so many levels. It just doesn't work as a whole. It's a movie that, despite a strong cast that includes Harry Dean Stanton, Crispin Glover, Dylan McDermott, and Jenny Wright, it's just a movie that just doesn't work at it well at all. Like, you don't like any of these characters whatsoever. The story is pretty generic. The movie overall is not very strong. It just doesn't work. It's a movie that's just... It has its heart in the right place, I guess, but it's just a film as a whole that just doesn't really pan out as well as I think they wanted it to. It's a movie that quickly came and went. Not a lot of people saw it, and you can probably tell why. It's just not a very good movie overall, and I really don't have anything more to say about that movie. So, Twister. So with that said, that's going to wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We continue on next week with 4 more new movies, including The Exorcist 3, which many people would say is probably the best Exorcist sequel that you'll ever see. But that's not really saying all that much. We'll delve into that one. We'll also delve into Steve Martin and Rick Moranis in the comedy My Blue Heaven. James Belushi and Charles Grodin in Taking Care of Business, one of the early film works of J.J. Abrams, who you might have heard of before. He did stuff like... He did a show on an island. He took over a couple of sci-fi franchises. This is one of his early film works, so we'll see how that panned out for him. And we also have David Lynch's controversial Wild at Heart, his first movie after Blue Velvet, 4 years prior to this. So we'll definitely look at all 4 of those movies next time around. But until then, thank you guys for watching. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this, check out the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another new episode. So until then, take care.